My sister-in-law swore her baby was a miracle from God, until I handed my brother the DNA test at the gender reveal. The first time Amanda told us she was pregnant, I was genuinely happy for her. My brother Jacob had been trying for years to have a baby with his wife, and after 3 miscarriages and countless fertility treatments, they'd finally given up hope. So when Amanda made the announcement at Sunday dinner, tears streaming down her face, calling it their miracle baby, we all celebrated. That was before I knew the truth. I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a molecular biologist specializing in genetics. I run a research lab at Boston Medical Center, and I've spent 15 years studying DNA, heredity, and the fascinating ways genes express themselves across generations. It's my job to see patterns, to understand inheritance, to know what's possible and what isn't. And what Amanda was claiming, it wasn't possible. The doubts started small, little things that didn't quite add up. But by the time Amanda was 6 months pregnant and planning an elaborate gender reveal party, I knew. I had proof, and I was faced with an impossible choice: destroy my brother's happiness or let him raise another man's child believing it was his miracle. I chose the truth, and it destroyed everything. Let me back up. My brother Jacob is the kindest person I know. He's one of those genuinely good humans who sees the best in everyone, who volunteers at the soup kitchen every weekend, who coaches Little League even though he doesn't have kids of his own. He's a high school teacher, history and social studies, and his students love him. He's the favorite uncle at every family gathering, the one who remembers birthdays and sends thoughtful gifts and always has time to listen. Jacob married Amanda Reeves 5 years ago. They'd met at church, bonded over their faith, and had what everyone called a fairy tale romance. Amanda was beautiful, blonde, petite, always perfectly put together. She sang in the church choir, volunteered at the women's shelter, posted inspirational Bible verses on social media. She seemed perfect. Maybe too perfect. I'm not a religious person. I'm a scientist. I believe in evidence, in data, in things that can be proven and tested. Amanda and I never quite clicked because of that. She'd make comments about how I needed to open my heart to faith, and I'd bite my tongue instead of pointing out that faith and facts weren't mutually exclusive. But Jacob loved her, and that was enough for me, until the fertility issues started. They'd been trying for a baby since their wedding night. Month after month, year after year, nothing happened. Amanda went through every test, every procedure. The doctors couldn't find anything wrong with her. Then Jacob got tested. I was there when he got the results. He called me from his car, crying so hard he could barely speak. "Sarah," they said my sperm count is almost zero, something about a genetic condition. They said natural conception is essentially impossible. We'd need IVF, donor sperm, or we'll never have biological children. I'd held him as he sobbed that night, feeling helpless. My brilliant, kind brother who would be an amazing father, and biology had betrayed him. They tried IVF, 3 rounds, all failed. Amanda had 2 miscarriages from the attempts. The doctors suggested donor sperm, but Jacob wasn't ready for that conversation. He needed time to grieve the biological children he'd never have. So they stopped trying. Jacob threw himself into teaching, into coaching, into being the best uncle to our sister's kids. Amanda became more involved in church activities. They talked about adoption maybe, someday, when they were ready. That was 18 months ago. Then 4 months ago, Amanda announced she was pregnant, naturally pregnant, without any medical intervention. "It's a miracle," she said at that Sunday dinner, her hand on her still flat stomach. "The doctors said it was impossible, but nothing is impossible with God. He answered our prayers." Everyone cheered. Mom cried. Dad opened champagne. Jacob looked like he'd been struck by lightning, joy and disbelief and wonder all at once. I smiled and hugged them and said all the right things. But in the back of my mind, that scientific part of my brain was already calculating probabilities. Jacob's condition wasn't the kind that improved. It wasn't temporary. His sperm count hadn't been low, it had been almost non-existent. The odds of natural conception weren't just unlikely. They were astronomically, impossibly small. Not zero, but close enough that any scientist would doubt it. I pushed the doubts away at first. Miracles happen, right? Medicine isn't always right. Maybe the tests were wrong, or maybe Jacob's condition had somehow improved. It was possible, even if unlikely. But then I started noticing other things. Amanda's behavior changed. She became secretive, defensive. When someone asked about prenatal care, she'd get vague. When Jacob suggested they see a genetic counselor, standard procedure given his condition, she refused, saying she didn't want science interfering with God's plan. She stopped letting Jacob come to doctor's appointments. "The waiting room is too stressful," she said. "I need peace for the baby." She was on her phone constantly, texting someone, then quickly hiding the screen when Jacob entered the room. And then there was the timeline. I'm trained to notice details. So I noticed that Amanda had gone on a women's church retreat exactly 9 months before she announced her pregnancy. A retreat that lasted 4 days. A retreat that, when I casually asked our pastor's wife about it, she had no memory of. A retreat, Mrs. Henderson had said, confused. We didn't have any women's retreats in January. We had the winter service project, but that was just a day trip to the shelter. Amanda had lied about where she'd been for 4 days, right around conception. I told myself I was being paranoid, that I was looking for problems because I couldn't accept that sometimes miracles do happen, that I was being a bad sister, a bad aunt by doubting. But I couldn't let it go. 2 months ago, I did something I'm not proud of. Amanda had come to Sunday dinner and used our bathroom. When she left, I found a strand of her hair on the sink. I pocketed it. I told myself I was crazy, that I'd throw it away, that I'd never actually go through with what I was thinking. But I couldn't stop seeing Jacob's face when he talked about the baby. The pure joy, the absolute faith that this was his child, his miracle, his second chance at fatherhood. If I was wrong, if the baby was his, then I was violating Amanda's privacy for nothing. But if I was right, I extracted DNA from the hair sample. It was easy. I do it every day in my lab. Then I waited. A week later, Jacob came by my apartment. Amanda was having a girls' night with her church friends, and he wanted to hang out. We ordered pizza and watched a basketball game, and during a commercial break, he got up to use my bathroom. He left his beer bottle on the coffee table. I stared at that bottle for a full minute. Then, hatting myself, I put on gloves and sealed it in a sterile bag. I had Amanda's DNA. I had Jacob's DNA. In 7 months, when the baby was born, I could get the baby's DNA from something as simple as a pacifier or a dropped bottle nipple, and then I'd know for sure. But 7 months felt like too long. 7 months of watching Jacob prepare a nursery, pick out names, buy tiny clothes and dream about his son or daughter. 7 months of him falling deeper in love with a child that might not be his. I couldn't do that to him. So I made a decision. I called in a favor from a colleague in obstetrics, got access to Amanda's medical records, not ethical, definitely fireable if anyone found out, but I had to know. Amanda's OB had done routine genetic screening, the kind they offer all pregnant women to check for chromosomal abnormalities, the kind that processes fetal DNA from the mother's blood, the kind that I could use to run a paternity test. It took me 2 weeks of careful work, of running tests multiple times to be absolutely certain, and every time the results were the same. The baby Amanda was carrying shared 50% of its DNA with Amanda, as expected. But it shared 0% with Jacob. 0, not even close, not maybe or probably not. Definitively, scientifically, impossibly, not his child. I sat in my lab at 2 a.m., staring at the results, feeling sick, because now I knew, and knowing meant I had to decide what to do about it. For 2 weeks, I carried that knowledge like a stone in my chest. I watched Jacob paint the nursery pale yellow, gender neutral, until we know, he'd said excitedly. I watched him research car seats and cribs and baby monitors with the same intensity he brought to everything he loved. I watched Amanda accept his devotion with a serene smile, one hand always on her growing belly, talking about God's plan and answered prayers. And I hated her for lying, hated her for letting Jacob love a child that wasn't his, hated her for whatever she'd done during those 4 missing days in January. I thought about telling Jacob privately, sitting him down, showing him the data, letting him decide how to handle it. But I couldn't find the words, couldn't figure out how to break his heart that gently. Then Amanda announced the gender reveal party. "We're doing it big," she told the family at Sunday dinner. "Venue, catering, photographer, everyone we love will be there to celebrate. It's going to be perfect." She looked radiant, 7 months pregnant, glowing, excited, playing the role of blessed mother-to-be perfectly. I looked at Jacob, at his face full of joy, and something inside me snapped. Amanda had made this public, had turned their miracle into a spectacle, had invited everyone to celebrate a lie. Fine, if she wanted public, I'd give her public. I printed the DNA results, had them bound in a professional folder with my lab's letterhead, included all the technical details, the methodology, the certainty of the findings, made sure it was irrefutable. And I went to the gender reveal party with that folder in my purse. The party was exactly as elaborate as Amanda had promised. Rented event space downtown, decorated in white and gold with he or she banners everywhere. Catered food, champagne fountain, a photographer taking candid shots of guests. About 100 people were there, family, friends, church members, Jacob's teacher colleagues. Everyone dressed nicely, everyone excited, everyone ready to celebrate the miracle baby. I wore black. Jacob joked that I looked like I was going to a funeral. He had no idea how right he was. The gender reveal was planned for 7 p.m. The party started at 6. I spent that hour watching Jacob, memorizing his happiness, because I knew that in 60 minutes I was going to destroy it. Mom pulled me aside at one point. "You've been quiet. Everything okay?" "Everything's fine," I lied. "You seem tense. Are you still overworking yourself at that lab?" "Just a tough project. I'll be fine." She squeezed my shoulder. "Try to relax. Enjoy the party. Your brother is so happy, Sarah. This baby is the best thing that's ever happened to him." I nodded, unable to speak, the folder in my purse feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. At 6:45, Amanda gathered everyone for the reveal. She stood at the front of the room, radiant in a flowing white dress, Jacob beside her with his arm around her waist. They looked like the perfect couple, the blessed parents-to-be. "Thank you all for being here," Amanda said, her voice carrying across the room. "Jacob and I are so grateful for your love and support. This baby is truly a miracle, a gift from God when we'd lost all hope. And tonight, we get to share this special moment with all of you." She held up a large black balloon. Inside, apparently, was either pink or blue confetti. When they popped it, everyone would know. "Before we do the reveal," Jacob said, his voice thick with emotion, "I just want to say thank you to my amazing wife who never gave up faith, to our families who supported us through the hard times, to God for this incredible blessing. I can't wait to meet our son or daughter. I'm going to be the best father I can be." He kissed Amanda, and the room erupted in awes and applause. That's when I stepped forward. "Wait," I said. My voice was steady, clear, loud enough to carry. "Before you do that, Jacob, there's something you need to see." The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at me. Jacob's smile faltered, confusion crossing his face. "Sarah, what's wrong?" I pulled the folder from my purse and walked toward him. With every step, I could feel 100 eyes on me, could hear whispers starting, could see Amanda's face going pale. "I'm sorry," I said to Jacob, handing him the folder. "I'm so sorry, but you need to know the truth before you celebrate." Jacob took the folder, still confused. "Truth? Sarah, what are you talking about?" "Open it." "Sarah, this isn't the time." Amanda started, but I cut her off. "Open it, Jacob." He did. I watched his face as he read the cover page, saw the confusion deepen, then shift to disbelief, then to horror as he understood what he was looking at. "Paternity analysis," he read aloud. "DNA comparison of fetal sample, mother sample, and putative father sample." He looked up at me. "What is this?" "It's a DNA test. I tested the baby's DNA against yours and Amanda's." The room was dead silent now. Even the photographer had stopped taking pictures. "You what?" Amanda's voice was shrill. "You had no right." "The baby isn't yours, Jacob," I said, ignoring her. "I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. But scientifically, genetically, without any doubt whatsoever, that baby isn't yours." Jacob was staring at the papers, at the charts and graphs and percentages. He taught history, not science, but even he could understand what 0% probability of paternity meant. "This can't be right," he whispered. "The doctors said it was a miracle," Amanda said. Amanda lied. I turned to her and I didn't try to hide my anger. "Where were you in January, the women's retreat that never happened? Who were you with?" Amanda's face was white, then red, then white again. "How dare you?" she hissed. "How dare you come into my celebration and—" "Answer the question," Jacob said. His voice was hollow, broken. "Amanda, where were you in January?" "This is insane. She's lying. She's trying to ruin—" "I'm a molecular biologist," I said to the room. "I run a genetics lab. This is what I do. These results are from my lab, processed by me personally, triple-checked for accuracy. The science doesn't lie, Amanda. You do." "Jacob, please, you have to believe me. She's jealous. She's always been jealous of what we have." "WHOSC baby is it." Jacob's voice was a roar. I'd never heard him yell like that, ever. Amanda flinched. Then slowly her perfect facade cracked. Her shoulders slumped. Tears started running down her face, real tears this time, not the performative ones she'd been using all night. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Jacob, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen. It was a mistake, just one time, and when I found out I was pregnant, I thought maybe it was a sign. Maybe God was giving us what we wanted, even if it wasn't exactly how we planned." "Who?" Jacob's voice was dead now. "Who's the father?" Amanda was sobbing, but she didn't answer. "Who?" Jacob repeated. She shook her head, unable to speak. "It's Pastor Mark, isn't it?" The voice came from the back of the room. Mrs. Henderson, the pastor's wife, stepped forward. Her face was pale but determined. "The counseling sessions that winter, the late-night prayer meetings. I knew something was wrong, I knew." Amanda's silence was confirmation enough. The room erupted, people shouting, crying, demanding answers. Jacob stood frozen, the DNA folder hanging from his hand, his whole world collapsing around him. Amanda was sobbing, saying, "I'm sorry," over and over, but no one was listening. I stood there watching the chaos I'd caused and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just a deep, aching sadness for my brother. Jacob finally moved. He walked away from Amanda, away from the unopened balloon, away from the gender reveal that would never happen. He walked past our parents, past his friends, past everyone. He walked straight to me. For a moment, I thought he was going to yell, to blame me for destroying his life, his marriage, his dream of fatherhood. Instead, he hugged me, held me tight while his body shook with silent sobs. "Thank you," he whispered into my hair. "Thank you for telling me. Thank you for not letting me live a lie." And that's when I finally cried too. The aftermath was brutal. Jacob filed for divorce the next day. Amanda moved out of their house and back in with her parents. Pastor Mark was removed from his position at the church. Turns out Amanda wasn't his first affair. Mrs. Henderson filed for divorce too. The story spread through our community like wildfire. Miracle Baby became Scandal Baby. People took sides. Some blamed Amanda. Some blamed me for exposing it so publicly. Some blamed Jacob for not seeing the signs. Mom was furious with me at first. You humiliated your brother in front of 100 people. You could have told him privately. Amanda humiliated him, I countered. She made it public. She turned their lie into a celebration. I just revealed it for what it was. Your brother is devastated. He would have been more devastated raising another man's child for 18 years before finding out. Dad sided with me. Sarah did the right thing, hard but right, better now than later. Our family divided, arguments happening at every gathering. My sister Linda stopped speaking to me for a month, saying I destroyed Jacob's happiness. His happiness was built on a lie, I told her. That's not real happiness. Who are you to decide that? I'm someone who values truth over comfortable delusions. Jacob didn't speak to anyone for 2 weeks. He took a leave of absence from teaching, stopped answering calls, basically shut down. I was terrified I'd broken him permanently. Then one night, he showed up at my apartment at 2 a.m. I need to talk, he said. We sat in my kitchen drinking coffee, while Jacob finally processed everything. I keep going over it, he said. Every moment, every conversation, looking for signs I missed. And Sarah, they were all there, I just didn't want to see them. You trusted her, that's not a flaw. It is when the person you trust is lying to your face. He stared into his coffee. The worst part, I'm mourning 2 losses, my marriage and a baby that was never mine to begin with. How screwed up is that? It's not screwed up. You prepared to be a father. You loved that idea, that possibility. It's okay to grieve it. I've been thinking about what you said, about how I would have felt if I'd raised the kid for years before finding out. He looked at me. You saved me from that. From years of loving a child, then learning the truth and having to choose between the kid and my own sanity. You saved me from that, Sarah. I'm still sorry I had to do it that way. Are you, really? His voice wasn't accusatory, just curious. Because I've been thinking about that too. If you told me privately, I might not have believed you. I would have wanted to give Amanda a chance to explain. I might have let her talk me into thinking the tests were wrong, or that miracles can't be explained by science. I might have stayed in denial. Maybe. Doing it publicly, in front of everyone, at her big celebration, that was strategic. That made it impossible for either of us to pretend it away or sweep it under the rug. That forced the truth into the open where it couldn't be ignored. I hadn't thought of it that way. I'd acted partly out of anger, partly out of a desire to protect my brother. But maybe there had been strategy too. Amanda made it public, I said. She turned your private life into a performance. I just interrupted the show. You pulled back the curtain, Jacob agreed. He was quiet for a moment. I'm glad you did. Even though it hurts like hell, I'm glad I know. Because now I can heal. Now I can move forward. I couldn't have done that living a lie. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Amanda gave birth to a boy. Jacob never asked about it. Pastor Mark, cornered by his congregation and facing losing his own family, admitted he was the father and agreed to pay child support. He and Amanda are not together, both now social pariahs in a community that had once celebrated them. Jacob started therapy, worked through his grief, his anger, his betrayal, slowly. He came back to himself, back to teaching, back to coaching, back to being the kind, good person he'd always been. I'm not dadding, he told me 6 months after the divorce, but I'm open to it eventually. And Sarah, next time I'm not ignoring red flags. Next time I'm asking questions. Next time I'm trusting but verifying. Good, I said. And next time you have doubts, call me. I'll run whatever tests you need." He laughed, actually laughed. It was the first time I'd heard that sound since the gender reveal party. Our family slowly healed too. Linda and I reconciled after she admitted that she'd been angry at me because she'd had her own doubts about Amanda and felt guilty for not voicing them. "I thought I was being paranoid," she confessed. "I thought I was being judgmental, but my gut was telling me something was off, and I ignored it because I didn't want to rock the boat." "Never ignore your gut," I told her. "Intuition is just pattern recognition happening below conscious awareness. If something feels off, there's usually a reason." Mom eventually came around too. "I was angry because I wanted that grandchild," she admitted. "I wanted Jacob to have his miracle, and when you took that away, I blamed you instead of blaming Amanda for the lie. That wasn't fair." "I understand. It's easier to be angry at the messenger than accept the message. Your father raised you to always tell the truth, no matter how hard," Mom said. "I'm sorry I forgot that when the truth was inconvenient." A year after the gender reveal party, Jacob started dating someone new. Her name was Rachel, and she was a librarian at the school where he taught. She was quiet, bookish, genuine, the opposite of Amanda in every way. "I like her," I told Jacob after meeting her for the first time. "She seems real." "She is," Jacob said. "No pretense, no performance, just herself. It's refreshing." "Have you told her about Amanda?" "On our second date. Laid it all out. The infertility, the affair, the fake miracle baby, the public revelation. Figured if it was going to scare her off, better to know early. And she said, 'Thank God you have a sister who loves you enough to tell you the truth.' Then she said she'd been through her own betrayal, ex-fiancé who'd been stealing from her, and she understood that healing from that kind of deception takes time." I met Rachel's eyes across the table. She smiled at me, a real smile, warm and genuine. "Thank you," she said simply, "for looking out for him. Not everyone would have had the courage to do what you did." "I almost didn't," I admitted. "I almost decided ignorance would be kinder." "Ignorance is never kindness," Rachel said. "It's just delayed pain." 2 years after the gender reveal, Jacob and Rachel got married. Small ceremony, close family and friends only. No drama, no spectacle. Just two people who'd been hurt before, promising to build something honest together. At the reception, Jacob pulled me aside. "I need to tell you something," he said. "Rachel and I have been talking about kids. We want them, but we're going to use donor sperm from the start. No surprises, no pretending, no lies. Just honesty about where our family comes from." "That sounds healthy." "And Sarah, if we do this, if we have kids through a donor, I want you to be involved. Not as the scientist checking DNA," he smiled, "but as their aunt, their godmother, the person who taught their dad that truth matters more than comfort." My eyes filled with tears. "I'd be honored." "You saved my life," Jacob said quietly. "I know it didn't feel like it at the time. I know people blamed you. But Sarah, you saved me from years of living a lie. You loved me enough to be the bad guy, and I will never ever forget that." We hugged, and I felt the last weight of guilt lift from my shoulders. I'd made the right choice, the hard choice, the choice that hurt in the moment but prevented years of deeper pain. I'm writing this 3 years after the gender reveal party. 3 years since I handed my brother that DNA folder and watched his world shatter. Jacob and Rachel have a 1-year-old son named Daniel, conceived through donor sperm. He has Rachel's dark eyes and what's probably the donor's curly hair, and Jacob loves him with the kind of fierce devotion only a parent who truly chose parenthood can have. "He's mine," Jacob told me, holding Daniel. "Not genetically, but in every way that matters. I chose him. I wanted him. And that makes him mine more surely than DNA ever could." Amanda's son is 3 now. I've never met him, never seen him. Amanda moved away shortly after he was born, cutting ties with everyone who knew about the scandal. I don't know where she is or how she's doing, and I don't particularly care. Pastor Mark lost his career, his marriage, and his reputation. Last I heard, he's working at a hardware store and paying child support for a kid he barely sees. Mrs. Henderson remarried and is apparently very happy. Some people still think I was wrong to expose Amanda so publicly, that I should have handled it privately, that I was cruel to humiliate her in front of everyone. Maybe they're right. Maybe I could have found a gentler way. But I think about the alternative, Jacob raising that boy for years, bonding with him, loving him, then finding out the truth later and having to choose between the child he'd raised and the betrayal he'd endured. That would have destroyed him more completely than anything I did. Truth is like surgery. Sometimes you have to cut in order to heal. Sometimes you have to cause pain to prevent greater pain. It's not pretty, it's not comfortable, but it's necessary. At Daniel's first birthday party last month, surrounded by family and laughter, and a happiness built on honesty rather than lies, Jacob raised his glass in a toast. To family, he said, not the family we thought we'd have, but the family we built from the truth. And to my sister Sarah, he looked at me, who loved me enough to tell me the truth even when it hurt. Thank you for saving me. To truth, I said, raising my own glass, and to the courage to face it. We drank, and I looked around at the family we'd rebuilt from the ashes of Amanda's lies. It wasn't the family Jacob had imagined. It wasn't the miracle he'd prayed for. But it was real, and in the end, that's the only miracle that matters. And that brings us to the end of Sarah and Jacob's story, a tale of betrayal, courage, and the difficult choices we make to protect the people we love. Their journey reminds us that sometimes the kindest act is the hardest one, and that truth, no matter how painful, is always better than comfortable lies. What would you have done in Sarah's position? Would you have exposed the lie publicly or handled it privately? How do you balance protecting someone from pain with protecting them from greater harm? Share your thoughts in the comments below if this story moved you. Please like and subscribe for more powerful stories about family, truth, and the courage to do what's right even when it's hard. Thank you for listening. Until next time, remember, the truth might hurt, but lies destroy. And sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to let someone you love live in deception.